Hi class, this is your week 2 assignment, Barriers to Critical Thinking. Can you break through your barriers? All right, so let's look at the directions. Not hard to do. You're going to identify 2 barriers that influence your critical thinking. That's your own. You're going to write 100 words for each barrier. That's 100 words for each, 200 total, describing them and how you can overcome them. And then you're, of course, going to submit your answer. So let's look at the details. Of course, you must read the chapters first. That's a given. You're going to identify 2 barriers from the reading. So identify 2 barriers. Chances are you're going to have more than 2. Actually, the book says we most likely have all of the barriers mentioned, plus there's zillions more that we have. But you're only going to choose 2 that you want to discuss. Now, I'll tell you, I would choose the 2 that I could write the most about, but you may want to choose the 2 that mean the most to you. That either is fine, however you want to choose to write the 2, because you are writing this in first person. So you're going to write about how these are your barriers and how you plan on overcoming them. Please do not tell me about a barrier that you have already overcome. Guys, even advanced critical thinkers know that these barriers are always with us. We don't overcome these barriers. We actually are more likely able to just recognize them and push them aside. But don't say you've overcome a barrier because probably chances are we haven't. They're always going to pop back up. So you want to discuss some that you have now and how you plan on overcoming them. Please write your paper in APA format, including your reference page. Guys, there's still a few people that I saw in week 1 that did not do that. If you don't know how to do that, please go back to the week 1 video. Toward the end of it, I talk about how to get to the Riverpoint Writer, as well as there should be a link to the Riverpoint Writer on your rubric from last week. So make sure it's in APA, it's double-spaced, you have opening and closing paragraphs, you have a title page, and you have a reference page. Again, use academic language. This is not a conversational tone, so you cannot use slang. You don't want to use contractions. You do not want to use contractions. You do not want to use any type of even a little bit what might be considered a cuss word of any type. None of those are considered academic language. You will be writing in first person, which is different from APA and academic writing usually. But our class, you have to write these things in first person. And then, of course, always cite your textbook on a separate reference page. So let's look at the outline, exactly how this is going to be written. All right, so your opening paragraph is a quick introduction. You're just going to talk about what barriers are in general, so you could just discuss them. Remember, no more than 2 or 3 sentences. That becomes way too much. However, 1 sentence is not a paragraph. It's just a lonely sentence. Body paragraph 1, you're going to take your first barrier and you're going to define it. If you define it word for word from the book, guys, please use the in-text citations. I suggest doing this, not because I want you to write word for word from the book, but because I want you to learn how to use in-text citations if you haven't learned before. Just explore a little bit. We're not going to take off a zillion points if you messed up your in-text citations. What we'll do is help to guide you if you gave it a try. Then you want to describe how you plan to overcome this barrier. So don't just tell us about the barrier. Make sure you plan how to overcome the barrier. A lot of people forget this part. This should be based on what you read, not off the top of your head. So this whole thing needs to be at least 100 words for this paragraph. More is fine. As a matter of fact, most people usually go over 100 words. But for body paragraph 1, it's 100 words. Body paragraph 2, you're going to do the same thing with your second barrier. Guys, you can take 2 internal, you can take 2 external, you can take 1 internal, 1 external, whatever floats your boat is fine with me. But make sure you do 2, that you define it, and then you talk about how you're going to overcome it. This one also has to be at 100 words. Then you're going to give a nice closing paragraph, just a few sentences wrapping up, and make sure to go to a new page to make your reference page. You're not just going to slap your citation down there at the bottom of your paper. All right, notice that this is 100 words, this is 100 words. So that 200 words are in these 2 paragraphs. That doesn't include the opening and closing paragraph. So if you met all the criteria for this paper, then you'll have more than 200 words, because the 200 is just for in here. So I'm going to be looking at this paragraph and this paragraph when I check the word count, okay? You should really enjoy this. It's really interesting to take the time and go through your own thinking and find out your own barriers. It really changes the way you look at things, especially when you talk about debatable topics. As always, if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to ask. That's why we're here. We want to help. And the best way to do that, either through private messages, or you can respond to this post with the video in it. Just hit reply and ask your question. Thanks so much, guys. Enjoy.